The Silver Lining Podcast has been brought to you by the Library Services and Technology Act grant through the Institute of Museums and Library Services. I am your host and your captain for another episode of the Silver Lining Podcast, Brett Silver. And man, do we have a show for you today. This is great. So I don't know if you guys knew this, but we actually have an in-house studio, small in-house studio in Carson City that records books by Nevada authors, either about Nevada or that took place in Nevada. And I have our recording coordinator, Jennifer Taylor, here with me. Jennifer, how you doing?
Great, Brett. Thanks for asking. How are you doing?
Good, good. So let me ask you, first of all, how did you get hired with the recording program? Do you have some kind of like background in recording or something like that?
No, actually not, Brett. I I had worked in a library previously, and but I have a very extensive background in computer applications and programming, and so the recording program that we use is nothing more than a tool. And once you learn that application and can utilize those tools, it's fairly straightforward and doesn't necessarily require an audio editing. We do very little mixing and dubbing and things that maybe a music studio would do, because we are doing podcasts and the equivalent of just audio narration. So the fact that I did not have a background in that was not necessarily a negative factor. What was a positive factor was the selection of materials and the fact that I read extensively. I work in the library itself, the Nevada State Library and Archives, 20 hours a week, and do my talking books coordination the remaining 20 hours. So my exposure to the literature that we carry, in particular the Nevada-based literature, is actually of great value in recommending books that we can pull into talking books purchase for the purpose of narration. So we can actually review them in the library, and it's that part of things has really opened up the recording program to a lot of different things that maybe wouldn't have been considered before.
Can you back it up a bit? You'd mentioned something about purchasing. Would you guys, you guys don't purchase books to be recorded or anything like that, do you?
We do, Brett. Maybe
Do
not
you?
all the time. We always look, when possible, for donations. Sometimes a self-published author um, or any Nevada-based author will actually donate a book and ask us to record it. And of course, that's a whole other subject there that we can touch on. But when we cannot have a donation, we are fortunate enough to have gift funds that our patrons have been generous in donating to the Talking Books program. And some of those gift funds then are used to purchase a book within our collection criteria. And the reason that we have to purchase a book, and generally in the past it used to be 2 books, but a single book, is that it is marked up extensively for setting up the narration and the navigation, and also keeping track of all the times in the waves. And particularly when it's being reviewed, we have to identify the exact place in the book and on the track that corrections need to be made, or and cut and paste needs to happen, or audio needs to be amplitude needs to be adjusted, or things like that. So the book itself, when we have completed narration, is really chock-a-block with a lot of markings. It's no longer really usable for any other purpose, and then it goes into our archives, which we save forever, I believe, in case we ever need to refer back to that for any reason.
So there will be typos in the book at some point, maybe that you guys actually correct when recording it.
Aha, that's a very good question, Brett.
That's what it sounded
Um,
like you were saying. That's
yes,
what I'm getting. So
interestingly enough, in years past, and to the current day, this is our objective is always to do copies identical. So we are reading the book exactly as it's written. And in the past, that has been typos, included, bad grammar included, run-on sentences included. We make no changes to the way the book was written.
What's
However,
there is there, pretty much, right?
that's right, exactly, Brett. But NLS, the National Library Service, has in their policy that if there is grammar, typos, misspellings, anything like that that falls outside of the range of normal English usage, we can correct it. And we do that. What we would never change would be the structure of a sentence or anything that would have an impact on the story as it was written and in the voice that it was written in. And it's funny because I actually read a book myself recently, and in the book the bad guy killed off one guy, and 3 pages later the guy he killed was back in the in the book again. So
Oh boy. So,
so I'm
but you
like,
had to read it
uh-oh,
just that way, right?
I don't know, but I couldn't correct it because that was the way that it was written.
Right,
So
right.
we just hope that that our patrons don't catch that, or if they do, they get a good chuckle out of it.
I had a friend of mine who unfortunately is no longer with us, but he was a patron. And it wasn't
Yeah.
necessarily the books. Well, I don't know if it was books you narrated. Maybe it was, or that came from our program. But he was a big stickler for certain things, mispronunciations and things
Mm-hmm.
like that. And he was always telling me, oh, you know what this narrator said? And I remember the big one was unkempt that he went
Yes.
nuts over. So,
Yes. Yeah.
but well, that's an interesting point. I didn't realize all that.
Yeah.
Yeah, you guys
And
have to.
yeah, I mean, you raised the point about pronunciation. Pronunciation is very tricky. And one of the criteria when someone is going to narrate a book is to, either read it cover to cover prior to starting narration or scan it very carefully and identify words that they maybe don't are not familiar with the pronunciation and or foreign names, foreign accents, indigenous names, Basque names, those all have a specific pronunciation. And we do ask our narrators to spend the time and do the research to find the correct pronunciation. Oftentimes, especially with Nevada local authors, we can contact the author directly and find out, are we saying their name correctly? First of all, the author's name, the pronunciation. If they're talking about other people, are we pronouncing their names as they should be? And then these special pronunciations, we can verify those. There's online resources, and like I said, we can actually contact the author for correct pronunciation. And some words are very, very tricky, for that reason.
Yeah, I can imagine. If it's something from, like you said, a foreign pronunciation of a name,
Yes.
even of some just certain words. And so that's wow. Yeah, I always wondered how you guys did that.
Yeah, and I mean, the other thing is accents. Is typically we want a narrator to not to have a deep Southern or a English accent, let's just say. And it's not just the accent itself, but it's the way the word is pronounced. And speaking for myself, I'm of English extraction. My mom's from England. I say things like adult instead of adult.
You say your
And
mum's from England.
yes, yeah. So, things like that, we try. It's not incorrect to say it one way, but common use dictates that you say it the American way.
Right, right,
So,
exactly. Like you won't
yeah.
say schedule,
Yeah,
or things like you say
try not to,
schedule.
yes.
Well,
Sometimes you slip up.
right, right. Well, let's go into there's a lot to unpack here. Let's go into the criteria of what can get something into our local collection. What do you guys go by on that?
Well, the Nevada State Library and Archives has its own collection policy for books that are within the library, and the Talking Books collection policy is a subset of that. So what we would record would be what you had mentioned earlier, books by Nevada authors, books set in Nevada and referring to Nevada places, um, And sometimes independently published, but those are the two main criteria. And so you can imagine we do read a lot of history, a lot of things about the legislature, places, geographical type things, but we also do read books that are written by Nevada authors.
Right. Okay. So if somebody's living here in Nevada and
Hmm.
they wrote a book, but it doesn't really have anything to do with Nevada or it doesn't take place in Nevada, chances are it probably won't end up in our collection. Is that accurate?
Well, likely not, but that is a huge gray area. And there's further criteria to that too, is that it's not that we only read, well-known mainstream published authors, because there are some superb independently published books for all age groups. And if it is criteria and the person is now living in Nevada, it's of general interest, um, and it is grammatically correct and well written. Those are the things that we look at.
Okay. Okay. So it does have to, I remember you saying at one point, it has to have some kind of maybe a review on online somewhere, right? Or something.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, that's in particular for self-published books or books that are independently published. Is we do look at WorldCat, we look at numerous other sources, reviews, to get a sense of not just the story, but how well it is written. So, and the reviews do have to be from a creditable source.
Okay. Okay. So it can't just, the reason I ask is I've had people when I've been at outreach events that have just come up to me and said, I'd love to, get my book on your program, but it's
Yeah,
something ridiculous. It's like, not even a book. It's like a pamphlet, a 15-page pamphlet of
right.
whatever,
Yeah,
So,
probably that would not um, be able to be included, Brett, things like that. And there have been numerous books in the past. I read one myself, that was just very, I would say, poorly edited. It was not caught. The errors and grammar was not caught in editing, and probably should not have been read in the program. So,
okay. There's that
yeah.
English program.
Oh, yes.
So let's go into that too. Okay, so for if somebody wants to be a narrator, would they submit a demo to you or how does that work?
Um, a demo is always wonderful. We do ask for people who are interested in volunteering to come to actually fill out our application, which they can do online through our website on the Talking Books link. Um, if they scroll down, there is an online application that they can submit, and we would then contact them, and then we would put them on our list. And we do have a running list that has anywhere from a 6-month to a 1 or 2 year backlog, depending on attrition and who's leaving, who's no longer able to fulfill their time commitment. But as a spot opens, then we would call that person, have them come in, and actually do a demo in our booth with our equipment and using our criteria. So we don't necessarily want a demo of something that they're reading at home. We want them to read brand new material with a lot of twisty turny words and all kinds of things to see what kind of a voice they put to that, and what their speed is, what their diction is, how is their stamina going through and reading a fairly long thing, and the pacing.
So
So
you want it on site, like
we
a
have
crash
them do
course
it on
right there.
site. Yeah, we do
Right.
have
They
them do
they
it
could
on
have
site.
they could have edited the demo or something or whatever.
Ex-
Whereas with you,
exactly. Yeah.
you're watching them and listening to them and you're
Exactly,
going,
which is
ah,
not a bad thing. I mean, we edit everything that is recorded as well. So that the end result is that we want the best result possible. Um, but interestingly enough, Brett, even though someone wants to be a narrator, when we start somebody new, they must start as a reviewer. And the first that could go on for a fairly long period, maybe 4 to 6 months, where they are reviewing books narrated by others. And there's a couple reasons for that, because NLS has particular standards of the way we read the book. We've talked about that earlier. There's no ad-libbing, there's no changing things. They don't want, hugely dramatic range of voices. They want us to read in a particular style, while still imparting the sense of the character as the author intended it. But the you learn a lot by hearing other people, reviewing other people's narration. And so that's the first step to becoming a volunteer or becoming a narrator, is to be a reviewer.
So there's a whole process. It's not just like, oh, I can come in and be a narrator.
Yeah,
You're going to
no.
start reviewing first before you even narrate.
Exactly. You review first. We do ask here in Carson City for a two hours a week commitment for a fairly decent period of time, with the idea that you spend all this time reviewing and learning different styles and different pacing, and then you do move into narration. Well, the worst thing that could happen is you move into narration, get halfway through a book, and then decide to quit. Well,
Oh,
there's somebody else can't come in and complete it. So all that time, both on the library services side and Talking Books personnel side, but also on the volunteer side, is wasted if the book is not completed.
yeah. Oh, I can
So
imagine. Then you got to start from scratch then, don't you?
exactly, you scrap it and start over. And we have a very great many books that's exactly what's happened, Brad, is that, not that people have quit, but let's say they jump into narration, they go through the whole book, and then when the reviewer goes back and reviews, they find that there's pages upon pages upon pages of corrections, far more than it would make, economic sense and time sense to correct. So in that case, the book has to be scrapped or handed to someone else for narration. So that does happen.
So you
Yeah.
gotta, if you're gonna be a narrator, you better have some thick skin, is basically what it is. And that's, hey, that's how it should be.
Yeah, yeah, it's one of those things that, like NLS says, a really good narrator practices, practice, 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 practice. The more you do, the better you become at it. And the more you listen to other narration, the more you pick up little tips and tricks to make your own narration more interesting. Um, and, a lot of this people don't realize is, when you are sitting and narrating for 2 hours, you have to have a lot of stamina. You have to have good breath control. Um, you have to keep expression. Most of all, you have to keep interest. And, they always say that, like, um, it takes a good narrator to read a good book, but it takes a great narrator to read a bad book. And that's really true, is that if you're reading a book that you're like bored stiff with, you don't care for the subject matter at all, you have to be a great narrator to impart the level of interest that the author intended.
Right.
So those are
Right.
the things that you learn over time.
Yeah. Yeah. Now, are the narrators paid?
No, Brett, they're not. It is totally a volunteer gig, and again, the only requirement that we have, that we ask, is for a commitment of 2 hours per week. And obviously, people take holiday and are sick or whatever, and so we make adjustments for people's schedule as much as we can. But in general, we do ask for that, and it is totally volunteer. So at the
Okay.
current time, we have about 10 volunteers that work in our 2 recording booths.
Okay. Oh, so you have two booths. Okay. So you can
We
get,
do have 2 booths,
okay.
and they're both identical, and so we can overlap people on that 2-hour schedule.
Okay. All right. Um, Also, I want to ask you, if, let's say, if somebody who's one of our patrons who happens to be completely blind wants to narrate a book, what would you guys do in that case? Or wants to become
That,
a narrator, should I say?
boy, that would be so awesome. here's the thing is National Library Service has many books that are available in Braille. So if a person is adept at reading Braille, and that book is available in hard copy, we would alter the procedure somewhat to have probably a reviewer, or what they call a monitor, at the same time that it's being narrated. But we would order the book from NLS, the
The
Braille
Braille
book,
book. Okay. Okay.
and then the Braille or the blind narrator would narrate just as anybody else would by reading.
I was sharing with you off the air a little bit. People have asked me, "Do you narrate the books?" And I always just think they're ridiculous when they say that because I'm going, "No, they'd have to put it in Braille." So now this sort of opens something up new to me. Now I'll just let you know. I
Yeah.
read like a third grader when I'm reading out loud. So I would not be a good candidate for that. But just
And
in
that's a
case there
pity,
is,
Brett, because you have a fabulous voice.
oh, thank you,
But
thank you.
yeah,
But no,
yeah,
I'm horrible when it comes. If I'm reading something, I'm yeah, I completely turn my whole demeanor changes. So
yeah, yeah.
now, what if somebody wants to, like, say they're down here in Las Vegas, but they want to be a volunteer narrator for the Talking Book program? Could they do it from home using, like Adobe Audition or something, or does it have to be done in your studio there in Carson City?
At the present time, we ask that they come into the studio and narrate here. If someone did have Audition, which is what the program that we use for recording, and there are other narration programs as well, there certainly is a possibility, and we are looking into that, whether we could have some remote narrators and, in addition, remote reviewers. The problem really comes in with syncing the times on the waves. So when a correction needs to be made, it is very time specific within a wave, and
You wait, hold on. You may have to back up with the waves and all that stuff for us laymen.
oh,
That's a
oh,
little
I'm
technical.
sorry. Yeah, yeah. When you record, it generates a sound wave, a spiky sound wave, and we can spread it out and we can edit specific portions of it to take out words or to change the tone, and that every point on that wave has a time, a specific time, in minutes, seconds, milliseconds. And so that's coordinating that time between narration and review and editing is really critical.
Okay. Okay. So it's got to be synced up just right
It does
in
have
that
to be
case.
synced up just right. Yeah.
Wow.
Mhm.
Okay. So this has kind of been the reason it's got to be in-house as of right now. You're looking into this as far as
Yes,
the remote.
particularly on the reviewing side, Brad, is that
Okay.
again, we still have a little bit the problem with Wave, but I have experimented with it, with creating a huge long wave rather than separate. Typically, we try and break what's called a track, so sort of like a track on an old vinyl record or something like that is we have a track that's, let's just say, an hour and a half in length. So we
Right.
take all those individual tracks and put them together in a great big long wave. And I have experimented with then sending myself that wave or just copying it on a jump drive, and reviewing at home. And that's very easy to do. The only difference is it's one great big long wave rather than the individual tracks. So then when we go back in to the booth to do our editing and our takes, the times are out of sync.
Oh, so that's kind of the
It's
problem.
not an insurmountable problem by any means. It's something that
Okay.
we're currently looking into.
Okay. Well, the reason I asked too, kind of for selfish reasons, I when I go out and do outreach events, I do get a lot of people that ask, are you guys looking for narrators? And right away
Hmm.
when I said, well, it's all the way up in Carson City, you know,
Yeah,
and they're just
yeah,
kind of like, well, how come I got Adobe Audition at home? How come I can't, So
yeah.
would I be able to send those people to you, or how do we want to?
Yeah,
Okay.
absolutely, Brad. We We try and reach out to everybody who shows an interest in volunteering, find out what their expectations are. We tell them what our criteria is, and then we try and find a way to make it work for both parties. And that would include remote people. At the present time, narration would be difficult, but review is probably going to be happening, or we will be able to have people review remotely, hopefully within a short period of time.
Hmm. Okay, so that's really something you guys are working towards right now. And like you
Yes.
said, they got to start as a reviewer before they even
Yes.
get behind the microphone, really.
Yes. Hmm.
Okay. And what if, kind of going back to before, have we ever had patrons that have written books?
Yes, we have. Um, and there's no difference in the collection criteria for whether it's a patron, um, whether it's a state senator, whether it's the governor, it doesn't matter. The same criteria applies. Nevada author, Nevada based, and hopefully professionally published and edited.
Okay. Okay. What if somebody wants to narrate their own book? Have you ever had that happen?
Yes, it did. Did not have the experience personally, but I understand that prior to my coming, there was an author that wanted to narrate their own book, and apparently it didn't work out well. So, but I don't know specifically
I was going to say,
why.
yeah, I'd
Yeah,
love to know what exactly
yeah,
happened and why it
yeah.
didn't.
We actually, since I've been here, we did have a published author. Um, and we narrated one of his books, and when he wrote his second book, he did agree that he would come in and narrate it. So he donated the book, and then he agreed he would come in and narrate it. But in the end, he reneged on that because of the time commitment. I mean, and having to at that time come in here to the studio. So what's interesting about that is we always hope that we can narrate a book in the same voice and with the same sense that the author intended. So obviously having an author narrate their own book guarantees that you're going to get the voice and the sense of the person that they intend to portray.
Right, right. And everything's going to be verbatim pretty much
Yeah.
in most
Yeah.
cases.
Exactly. Yeah.
So, well, what if there's somebody, well, do you have to be a certain age to volunteer for the, I mean, as far as like, well, let's say you get somebody who's 16 years old and wants to be a narrator. Would you allow that or?
Oh, absolutely. Any age. Any
Okay.
age.
Even
Yeah.
with language and sex and stuff like that, or you just wouldn't let them read materials like that?
Well, what we do is we try and find out what the rating on a book is. So if a book is shown as having, extreme violence or, explicit sex or, strong language, and the narrator doesn't care for that book, then we would never ask them to read it. We don't assign the books. The volunteers pick the books themselves. So
Oh,
they look through our collection of books, and they then select which book they want to read after they've quickly scanned through it and looked at if that's something that they would be interested in reading, because that's really an important factor is you have to enjoy what you're reading. It comes across in your voice.
well, that's true. Well, sometimes though, on the other end of that, you might have somebody that's interested in a certain book or topic, but narrating that particular book or topic, maybe not so much because
Right.
they get so
Yeah.
wrapped up in it that they're not even thinking about the narration and how it's coming across. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah, that's true.
So,
But that type of emotion is probably what the author intended to be portrayed.
well,
So,
that's
and
true.
it's interesting because when we read, we do that in our minds. We assign these voices and the level of excitement or exclamation or whatever in our minds. So we do want that to be portrayed in the narration. Just like these books are just like any other audio book. They're navigated differently. That's the difference between what we record and what NLS has recorded is a different type of navigation than, an over-the-counter audiobook that you can check out from the library or download from Audible.
That's another thing too. How do you set it up with the markers in it? Like on our for those who are on our program, obviously,
Hmm.
for them to jump from chapter to chapter or phrase to phrase. How do you guys do that on our books in that case when you're recording them?
Well, once we've done the narration, then we actually go through and we have what's called announcements that specify different parts of the book. So it would be like, introduction, dedication, chapters about the author from the book cover. Those are all get a marker that then syncs up with the actual Talking Books machine or through Bard, so that the patron can skip over all that if they want to and go directly to the chapter or go backwards and forwards. And so that actually, um, those markers then and the whole book goes through a process or an application called Hindenburg. And Hindenburg is an application that NLS has endorsed because it does encrypt the book and upload the book to the what they call the portal, where we submit it to the National Library Service with all of that navigation intact. So that would be entirely different from the exact same book that maybe had been narrated through Audible, for example,
Hmm,
because that Audible book would have none of that. And
right.
that does sync up. The majority of the patrons, I believe, here for the Nevada patrons are using the DA1 or DA2 machine.
Or
And
even on our
these,
phones, they have
yeah,
those.
or the phones exactly through Bard. So those navigation points that I put in after the book is narrated allow you to do all that jumping around if you so desire.
Right. And obviously, like you said, it can't just be set up like a standard audiobook that you would get at, you know, Barnes and Noble.
Yeah,
You know what I mean?
it's
So,
different. Yeah. Uh-huh.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
So then I guess that's the last step of that, huh? That National Library Services has to approve the narration. And then they say, okay, you're good to go. You can, it's good to be put up on our site, or how does that work?
Well, everything is approved locally through basically a four-step process. The encryption of the book and this again this navigation is then uploaded to NLS. It flows through to Bard, and then we download from Bard to make sure that nothing is lost in translation. But once the book is marked up here, it's never reviewed again. So NLS is not looking at that book and saying, "Oh, this has been approved to go through."
Ah, so they
It's
won't kick it
assumed that
back.
we've done, no, it's assumed that we've done our job and
Okay.
are giving them, a viable book to put on their site for download through Bard.
Gotcha. And just so so the person who may not be a patron is listening to our show, it's NLS's National Library Services, which is our
Yes.
main hub, and then
Yeah.
BARD is Braille Audio Reading Download. I believe me, I know.
Yes.
I do the same thing myself, where I'll start
Yeah.
throwing
Thank you,
out
Brett.
acronyms and and going, wait a minute, hold on. The average
I
person hearing
know.
this isn't gonna know what I'm talking about.
Yeah.
So, well, this is great. If somebody's interested in being a narrator, is there somewhere that they can contact you, or you were talking about the online application?
Right.
What would be the best way
Yeah.
for them to get a hold of you?
There's basically three ways. They can call our Talking Books, the main Nevada Talking Books line. They can submit an email
Which
to
which
NV
is well, hold
Talking
on for a second.
Books.
Which is 1-800-922-9334. That's our main number if you're in state.
Yeah.
1-800-922-9334. And what else did you say? I'm sorry.
NV Talking Books.
At
eh,
admin.nv.gov.
yes,
This is
via
all going to be in the
email.
description too, so that'll be all good.
And then there is an application on the website as well with a
Okay.
little bit of there's a really short little YouTube that was produced by NLS saying what they look for in a narrator. And it just kind of goes over the things that we've already talked about, stamina, clarity,
Right.
reading exactly as is written. So there's a quick little blurb on the website there that they can watch.
Is that our main website?
It is, yeah, the Nevada
Okay.
State Library and Archives.
And what would they click on just to get that? Is there
Talking Books button, and below that there's a Get Involved tab.
Oh, Okay, it's in the
Yeah.
get involved section.
Yeah,
Okay.
and then they would go to the recording program tab, and then the application,
Okay.
open the application from there, and that gets
Okay.
submitted. And like I said, we do then contact volunteers and let them know that we have an ongoing a list of people who are interested, and when an opening occurs, we basically go down through the list chronologically.
Okay. Okay. Well, Jennifer, this has been awesome. I've learned a lot, which I love.
Great.
So these are things I didn't know, and I've worked for the program for like 20 years now.
Yeah.
So this is pretty cool. This is not a part of it that I really had much to do with. I didn't really know much about it. So you educated me on a lot of things I didn't know. So again, this has been awesome. You have been awesome.
Thank
And
you.
our audience, of course, is awesome. So you
Of
guys,
course.
thanks for watching and listening. And uh, we will be talking to you soon.
Great.
So
Thanks very much, Brett.
absolutely. And we will, yeah, we'll talk to you soon, everybody. We'll see you next
Okay.
episode.